G'day there, my name is Bernie and thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to have a look at some of the things that have been going on. One in particular, we're looking at potentially a change from Fujifilm to another brand. So we've been looking at Nikon, Canon, some other brands like Leica, but I just don't think that that's going to be probably the right thing, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But today it's mostly about the Nikon Z8. So I've been lent one of these by Nikon to give it a go, run it through its paces, predominantly against the X-H2s and the X-H2 that I'm currently filming on. And I've also been a GFX user in the past, so pitting it against that and working out which is the best way forward for me, because I think I'm at that junction where I'm either going to stick with Fujifilm, with it being X and GFX, or just X, or I might start to deviate and look at some other brands that might offer something that Fujifilm doesn't. So let's have a look at that and see where I'm at and see kind of where I'm going in my process and what I'm looking at changing to. But the biggest thing here is, don't stress, I'm not saying that I am moving imminently, I'm just looking at my options, seeing what's out there. I've been using Fujifilm exclusively almost for about 6 or 7 years now. I was Canon before that for about 10 years, so it's not like I haven't used another brand in the past, but I'm just at that point where I can start to look at whether I want to continue down this path or move to something else. Because at the end of the day, I'm a photographer who likes to try new things, go new places, and test some of the new technology out there. Fujifilm's worked very well for me because of the, I guess the dual setup being APS-C, a crop sensor camera, and having medium format on the other side of the table there. So you've got something for ultimate image quality and landscapes, and then you've got the other for wildlife, travel, portraits, kind of everything. So it really just, but running two systems can be arduous at times and quite frustrating. So we're going to have a look at that. The biggest thing, and probably the biggest reason for my wanting to look elsewhere and see what else is available, is the lens options for wildlife. So at the moment with Fujifilm, I'm just talking about X series here. You've got a 150-600, which is this guy here, which I've been using. It's a stunning lens, internal zoom, maximum aperture of 5.6 to f8. So it's great, and the reach is amazing, especially on crop sensor cameras, because it's the equivalent of about a 900mm lens. So there are so many benefits to having this, but at the same time, I do feel like where I'm currently located, which is in the mountains with some dense scrub, it is quite late before the sun gets kind of high enough to kind of penetrate through the valleys there. So I would really enjoy having a lens with this range, a 600mm or a 500mm with an f4, f4.5, even a 5.6 aperture. But at the moment they don't exist for Fujifilm natively, so I'm having to look at other options, whether I go Nikon lens and adapt it to an X series body. So that for me is one of my biggest frustrations. Otherwise, I'm fairly happy with the Fujifilm setup. I've got the X-H2s for ultimate speed with its stack sensor, and then you've got your X-H2 for the I guess ultimate image quality for a crop sensor camera. Great form factor. I've added a battery grip recently, so it beefs it up for my hands, and especially with those longer lenses. Because the only other option you've really got is to go the 200mm f2, which I have used in previous videos. An amazing lens, but for me I just don't get the reach that I want in order to take those photos that I'm looking to take. So even with the extender, it becomes a 300mm, which gives you about a 450. So for me, it's just not enough. It's pretty close, and I may end up going down that route, but I just want to review my options and just make sure that I'm making the right decision. So what are my options here? So I guess the most obvious option is to stick with APS-C. So a lot of you will probably be sitting there thinking, you've got one of the best stack-centered camera on the market, being the X-H2s. You've got the X-H2, which has got 40 megapixels. That should be enough for everybody, and I'd agree. So that's one of my options, and I've got great lenses. I've got the 50 to 140, I've got the 150 to 600, 10 to 24, I'd probably add the 16 to 55 just to round it out. But otherwise, I've got a pretty good setup. I could run a GFX body, so I've still got GFX lenses. I just don't have the body, so I sold the 50R in order to move to a 100S. Unfortunately, ended up moving to Wanaka in New Zealand, and that kind of took a bit of money from my camera budget, unfortunately. So I just haven't bought back into the system yet. So that's the other option, is go maybe a 100S or a GFX 100 II, although that's an expensive option. But you know, there are some benefits to that as well. So that's my second option. Third option, Z8. So this has been a fantastic camera, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But this, you know, is a legitimate option here. So I could sell all of my Fujifilm gear and move over to Nikon. And then the last option for me is probably the Canon side of things. So I could go to a Canon R5. Or you know, one of the other you know, faster bodies, but the R5 seems to sit in terms of price and usability and features in that sweet spot. And it does sound like there's a Canon R5 successor coming up. Well, that's the rumor anyway. So that's the other option. I don't probably feel as compelled by Canon. I'll go into that in a sec, but it is an option. And then you know, there is Sony. Unfortunately, Sony users, I'm just not that interested. I haven't tried a Sony in a very long time, so maybe I'd be shocked and compelled after using it, but it just doesn't feel like it's for me. So I'm going to keep that one out of it for now. I think too many options is just going to make it a little bit too hard. So going with the R5 last year, it was a great workhorse. So Canon sent that to me to give it a go. I'd obviously been with Fujifilm for 6 or 7 years, and they identified it as a great opportunity for me to, you know, give it a go, see what I think as a Fujifilm user. And at that time, I started my journey into looking what else was out there and whether that would be a great option for me. And as I've used Canon in the past, I appreciate their lenses, their reliability. It's a workhorse. The camera, the R5 in particular, was great for wildlife, and I've taken one of my favorite shots of the year on that from 2023, which was the rifleman from the Southern Alps, and I'll show that now. Excellent for landscapes and portraits and whatnot. I just feel that there's something missing for me. It doesn't feel as inspiring. It doesn't feel as tactical as using an X or a GFX camera. Otherwise, fantastic usability, excellent in the hands. It ticks all the boxes, which is why they're so popular. You know, there's no surprises there. Obviously, having had the GFX before, you know, this is a big kind of moment here for me. If I look back at all my favorite photos of 2023, most of them have probably come from Japan, which is where I took a GFX 100S, and I absolutely loved the look and feel, the 3D pop, the micro contrast, everything about it. And given I trained a lot of people on the GFX and the X series gear in my past as a trainer for Fujifilm, I know this system inside and out, and my goodness, do I love the GFX system. But it is an expensive system to buy into, especially for what I'm kind of looking for, which would be that GFX 100 II. So it's just about whether I can warrant the use of that in my current state of play with photography. So I've got lenses. It's just about getting that body back in and then running it alongside the X camera. So that is a serious contender to coming back into the kit, into the fold. But I would like to trial that. I haven't had any luck getting the 100 II, which has been frustrating because at one point last year I was ready to buy. I just couldn't test it, so I'm just not willing to put my money down before I can, you know, just make sure and just confirm that that's, you know, the right way for me. And then to that last option, so I'm currently testing the Nikon Z8 now, and I've been lucky enough to get the Z8 with the 24-70 2.8, which I've got on there at the moment. This is a stunning lens, you know, so far I've used it in a commercial shoot for an outdoor company. Unfortunately, I can't share those photos given that they're obviously tied to some new clothing and things that haven't been released yet. But just talking from my experience, incredible lens, the 24-70 2.8. I've also got the 100-400 here as well. So I've just got those two lenses. It would have been great to have something a little bit longer, but obviously it just wasn't available. So I was more than happy to go with the 100 to 400 because that'll give me an idea as to how it performs. And then obviously then I'll just, supplement that for whatever I think would be the best for me. I'd probably go the 180 to 600. I don't know whether I could go the 400 4.5. Otherwise I'd get an old F-series lens like a 600 f4 and adapt it. So we'll see how that goes. But the 24 to 70 is an incredible lens, amazing sharpness, and there's a certain character to it. I love the 16 to 55, which is the similar focal length on the X series range, and I found that this really met those expectations and kind of continued with that. So I'd be more than happy to change for the 24 to 70, given that range is what I use most for my landscape photography work. And then I just need something a little bit longer for my wildlife. Having something ultra wide would be great as well, but not something I'd need to start with. And I think the reason I'm loving the Nikon Z8 at the moment is because of that 45 megapixel sensor. And although I've got the 40 megapixel X-H2, having that larger sensor is just, it just gives a little more, obviously, larger photo sites, so it's getting more light in. There's obviously more detail in the shots, only slightly, but when you know what you're looking for, you can see it. I do like to print large, so that makes a difference for me. And it's somewhere in between, obviously, the GFX and an APS-C X-H2 type camera. So given I would be going to the 100 megapixel GFX, it does still want for something, but it does an extremely good job sitting in the middle there, and you're really getting that image quality meets speed scenario. Now the thing with the Z8 is I've only taken it out for a couple of quick landscape shoots, tried my hand at a bit of wildlife, although I couldn't get quite close enough and the weather was horrendous. So I do need to do a lot of testing here. So this will be a 2 to 3 week journey for me, just to really wrap my hand around the Nikon Z8, see whether this is an option, and see what it's got that my Fujifilm system doesn't, and what the GFX system wouldn't be able to do, and see whether there's some way that I can fit it in to my workflow. So there's a lot more I need to do here, especially on the wildlife side, because I know that this is going to be great to do just commercial work and for landscapes. It's got all of those features, and it's got all of it ticks all the boxes really. But for wildlife, I just want to test it from all accounts on YouTube, because there's a million other videos out there. The Z8 with its stack sensor does an amazing job, extremely good tracking compared to the X-H2s. So I don't think I'm going to be disappointed, but it's just whether it ticks all the boxes and it's compelling enough for me to change as well. The other thing I have seen is the files have been a dream to work with so far. The colors haven't been crazy different. Obviously Fujifilm is just known for colors. They just do that so well. So yes, there is a bit of a change in my post-processing tact, but it hasn't been a huge problem as of yet. So and obviously the files being being 45 megapixels and being from a larger sensor, they look great, obviously, but it's just about getting used to how I would edit those. So what am I leaning towards? So this is hard to say. As the ex-sales and training manager at Fujifilm, I love Fujifilm gear. Medium format is always at my core. I shoot that with 120 film, and it's just I love the look and feel. It's and I guess when you know a system, it makes it so much easier to shoot it, because you're not looking for buttons and dials, you're not looking through settings. It's just in your muscle memory. It's all your motor skills are attuned to that system. So changing to another system isn't just about the gear, it's also about changing the way you work, understanding the camera, and actually spending time with it and making sure that you know your way around it. Because the last thing you want to do is fumble a setting and miss the shot because you just don't know your camera well enough. Whereas with X and GFX cameras, I know pretty much all there is to know about them for what I need to do. So for X series, if I was to shoot X series exclusively, I really need a telephoto prime. So like a 500 4.5 or a 5.6 or 600mm, whatever it is, but something with a bit more speed to it. So instead of an f8 aperture, having something like an f4 or an f5.6, would be amazing. I understand that this is going to bring weight and cost factors into it, and Fujifilm are being quite open about why they developed the 150 to 600 and use things like a plastic outer shell to keep the weight down, the F8 to keep the weight down and the price down, so and making it accessible for a lot more people. But there are people out there that do need a faster lens, so weight and whatnot. And if you look at what Nikon have done with their lenses, with the PF lenses, incredible. You know, they should be huge. But because of this new technology, it's like what Canon did years ago with their diffractive optics, with their 400mm f4 DOIS. I had one of those in the past, absolutely loved it. It's small, easy to travel with. So there are options out there, and I do think Fujifilm with the X-H2s, you know, you've got a lot of people, you know, investing in this camera, but they need to make sure that there's a lens situation around it. So at this stage, I'm just in a testing phase. There's no need to worry. I may not ever switch. I may not leave the Fujifilm realm. It may be X and GFX for life, but I am just at that crossroads. I just want to make sure that I understand what's out there, and there's not something that will do what I'm looking to do better. So I'm just, you know, having a look around. The Nikon Z8 seems like an amazing system. There will be more videos coming out in the next week or two around you know, my thoughts, how I'm going with it, pros and cons, things of that nature. Maybe even a comparison in the field with the X-H2s, you know, trying to compare stacked sensors. But I'm just looking at the moment and just seeing what's out there and whether I'll change it. So what do you think? Have you ever changed systems? You know, how did you find it, that journey? Why did you do it? And did it actually make a difference? You know, pop your questions or your comments down in the comments section, because I'd love to know how you went with the transition, how you felt, and what it did for you as well. So I know a lot of you are using X-series cameras with third-party lenses and adapting them. I'd love to hear about that as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to know more, obviously, about the Z8 or my thoughts about the Canon R5, then please comment or watch future videos, because I'll be featured in those. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.